This beggar girl had gone 10 days without food, but a millionaire saw her and did something incredible. Rate my story from 0 to 10 in the comments. Your opinion is very important, and subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The aroma of freshly baked bread wafted through the bustling commercial avenue of the big city as the morning awakened with its fast-paced rhythm. Amidst the hustle and bustle of hurried people, a diminutive figure drew attention, with her fragility that brutally contrasted with the urban environment around her. The 4-year-old beggar girl, looking so frail that she seemed only 2, timidly approached an elegant elderly woman who was observing the products in the market window. Her large, dark eyes carried a sadness far too profound for her age, and her torn clothes barely covered her thin body, which betrayed days without adequate nourishment. "Please, ma'am," she whispered, with an almost inaudible voice. "I haven't eaten in 10 days." The elderly woman was startled by the child's sudden appearance, but her heart ached as she saw that dirty little face marked by hunger. Before she could react, however, the girl had already walked away, disappearing among the people like an urban ghost accustomed to living in the shadows. From inside his imported car, parked a few feet away, the 30-year-old widowed millionaire observed the whole scene. His striking matinee idol features contrasted with the somber expression that took over his face as he saw that child. Something about her awakened a painful memory that he had buried long ago, a strange sensation that made his chest tighten inexplicably. 3 years ago, he had lost his wife in an accident that completely changed his perspective on life. Since then, he had built emotional walls around himself, dedicating himself exclusively to the businesses he had inherited from his family. His fortune in stock market shares grew constantly, as did his investments in Bitcoin and other financial applications, but none of that managed to fill the void he felt inside. The calculating stepmother, a 50-year-old woman who had taken control of a large part of his businesses after the loss of his parents, still in adolescence, watched each stepson's movement with particular interest. She had molded that vulnerable young man into a cold and efficient businessman, exactly as she had planned from the beginning. Any sign of emotional weakness represented a threat to the control she exercised over him and over the family's assets. During the following weeks, the chance encounters between the millionaire and the girl became more frequent. She always appeared at the same time, trying to get some coins or food scraps from the merchants in the area. He, in turn, began to purposely alter his route to pass through that avenue, always inventing some professional excuse to justify the detour. The child had been living on the streets for months, since the woman who took care of her mysteriously disappeared one night, leaving her completely alone in the world. No one could explain what had happened. One morning, she simply wasn't there anymore, as if she had evaporated. The girl spent weeks waiting for her return, sleeping at the entrance of the building where they lived until she was kicked out by the building superintendent. The merchants in the area knew her story and tried to help when possible, but the difficult economic situation limited everyone's generosity. The girl learned to survive by scavenging for food scraps and sleeping in hidden places, always alert so as not to be seen by the authorities who could take her somewhere unknown. The millionaire began to discreetly leave some food in places where he knew she would pass. He never delivered it directly because something inside him resisted direct emotional contact. His strict and traumatic upbringing, shaped by his stepmother after the loss of his parents, had created a person incapable of showing vulnerability or genuine affection. During one of these occasions, local social workers began to make more frequent rounds in the commercial area, questioning the merchants about the constant presence of the child. The pressure increased when some residents of the area made formal complaints about the situation of the street girl who was harming the image of the neighborhood. The girl, noticing the change in the environment, began to hide in dark alleys and underground passages during the day, appearing only during moments of greatest movement to try to get some food. Her physical condition deteriorated rapidly with this new routine, and a persistent cough began to develop. She carefully hid her state of health, fearing that any sign of weakness would lead her away from the only place she knew. In her childish mind, that region represented relative security. There at least some faces were familiar to her, and she knew all the hiding places and escape routes. The millionaire noticed the change in the girl's behavior and began to genuinely worry for the first time in years. His profits and dividends continued to grow automatically. His investment funds prospered, but none of that seemed to matter in the face of that situation that stirred something deep in his dormant soul. One afternoon, while watching the girl cough violently hidden behind a trash can, he made a decision that would change both lives forever. He got out of the car and walked purposefully towards her, not knowing that that simple gesture would trigger a series of events that would reveal secrets buried for years and threaten to destroy everything he thought he knew about his own life. The millionaire's approach made the girl instinctively recoil, her large eyes revealing the fear she had learned to carry as protection. He stopped a few feet away, realizing that any abrupt movement could make her disappear again among the urban shadows. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said with a voice softer than he usually used in his business meetings. "I saw you coughing a lot." The girl watched him in silence, vaguely recognizing that elegant man she had seen other times in the area. Her childish intuition captured something different about him, a hidden sadness that echoed her own pain. "I'm okay," she murmured, trying to disguise another bout of coughing that made her small body tremble. At that moment, the millionaire felt something break inside his chest. The image of that fragile child transported him immediately to his own childhood, when at the age of 8 he had lost his parents in an accident and was placed under the care of his stepmother. He remembered the devastating loneliness, the feeling of abandonment that no amount of money or material comfort could alleviate. During the following days, he began to appear regularly in that place, always maintaining a respectful distance, but bringing small gifts, a wrapped sandwich, a small bottle of water, sometimes a fruit. The girl, initially distrustful, gradually began to accept those gestures of kindness. The stepmother, however, did not take long to discover the changes in the stepson's routine. Her informants scattered throughout the city. Employees, drivers, security guards reported the constant visits to the commercial area without any apparent justification in the businesses. When she finally found out about the child, her reaction was immediate and calculated. "Have you completely lost your mind?" She confronted him in her luxurious office, the words loaded with poison disguised as concern. "Your reputation, our businesses, everything can be destroyed by this irrational obsession." The millionaire, accustomed to submitting to the stepmother's emotional manipulations since adolescence, felt the familiar guilt settling in his chest. She had always known exactly which buttons to push to keep him under control. "It's not obsession," he defended himself weakly. "It's just humanity." "Humanity?" The woman laughed bitterly. "Humanity doesn't pay our bills, doesn't maintain our assets, doesn't protect our investments in gold and shares. You're being naive and dangerous." Meanwhile, the girl's situation was deteriorating rapidly. Her cough had evolved into something more serious, accompanied by intermittent fever that she desperately hid. During a violent storm that hit the city, she took refuge in a damp and cold underground passage, trembling not only from the weather, but from the illness that was consuming her strength. It was there that the millionaire found her that rainy night, completely soaked and delirious with fever. For the first time in years, his emotional defenses crumbled completely. Without thinking about the consequences or the stepmother's words, he picked up the girl and took her to his car, driving immediately to the nearest private hospital. In the waiting room, while the doctors examined the child, he called the stepmother to inform her about the situation. Her reaction was explosive, a mixture of fury and panic that revealed much more than simple concern for reputation. "You have no idea what you've just done," she hissed over the phone. "That child. You know nothing about her, about where she came from, about who was responsible for her before. What do you mean by that?" The question escaped him before he could contain it. A tense silence followed before the carefully calculated response. "Nothing, just, you should have consulted me before acting impulsively." But the hesitation in her voice planted a seed of suspicion that began to grow in the millionaire's mind. There was something she wasn't telling, something that went beyond simple concern with public scandals. During the girl's hospitalization, he remained at the hospital, ignoring the insistent calls from the offices and the urgent messages about important meetings. For the first time in years, his businesses took a back seat to something much more important. It was during one of those vigils that a nurse casually commented on the drawings that the girl had made on the back of some hospital papers. Apparently childish scribbles that, observed carefully, revealed an extraordinary artistic talent. Birds flying freely through the skies, imaginary landscapes full of impressive details for a 4-year-old child. "She has a special gift," commented the nurse. "I've seen many children here, but never one with this natural ability to capture emotions on paper." This discovery deeply moved the millionaire, who began to see the girl not only as a needy child, but as a unique and special human being that destiny had placed in his path, for some reason he did not yet understand. When the stepmother appeared at the hospital on the 3rd day, her expression revealed a mixture of irritation and something that seemed almost fear. She watched the girl asleep in bed with a strange intensity, as if she were recognizing something familiar. "We need to talk," she said to the stepson, pulling him into the hallway. "There are things about this situation that you need to know, things about the past that I tried to protect you from discovering." Her voice carried an urgency that he had never heard before, a vulnerability that completely contrasted with her habitual personality of absolute control. "What kind of things?" he pressed her, feeling that he was finally approaching answers to questions that he didn't even know he should ask. But before she could answer, an elegant woman entered the pediatric ward, asking about the girl who draws birds. It was a renowned gallery owner from the city who had heard about the drawings through one of the doctors, an old client of hers interested in art. The unexpected presence of that third person completely changed the dynamics of the conversation. The stepmother visibly paled as she saw the newcomer, and the millionaire realized that there were far more connections in that story than anyone had imagined until then. The gallery owner introduced herself as a 45-year-old woman with elegantly styled brown hair and eyes that demonstrated years of experience evaluating art. Her genuine interest in the girl's drawings contrasted drastically with the tension that her presence had created in the environment. "I own the most renowned gallery in downtown," she explained, addressing mainly the millionaire. "I heard about a child with exceptional talent, and I would very much like to see her work." The stepmother tried to intervene quickly. "I don't think it's appropriate to expose a sick child to this type of situation. She needs rest, not strange visitors." But the millionaire, still disturbed by the interrupted conversation, insisted that the gallery owner could see the drawings. When she examined them, her expression changed completely. It wasn't just professional admiration, there was something much more personal in her reaction. "These birds," she murmured, her hands trembling slightly. "The way she draws these birds is identical to the style of someone I knew a long time ago." The stepmother became visibly nervous, exchanging furtive glances with the gallery owner as if they shared some terrible secret. The millionaire captured the tension immediately. "Someone you knew?" he pressed her. The gallery owner hesitated before answering. "My sister. She disappeared a few months ago. She was an artist too, specializing in drawings of birds exactly like these." The silence that followed was deafening. The millionaire felt as if pieces of a complex puzzle began to fit together, revealing an image that he could not yet fully understand. "Your sister, what was her name?" The question came out of his mouth before he could think about the consequences. "She worked for a construction company as a secretary. She was a simple woman, but with incredible artistic talent. She took care of a little daughter alone after her husband abandoned her." The stepmother interrupted abruptly. "I believe we are rushing into fanciful conclusions. Many people draw birds." But the millionaire could no longer ignore the coincidences. His own company had a construction department, and in recent years, several female employees had been fired in a restructuring that he had not even personally followed, leaving all decisions to the stepmother. That night, after the gallery owner withdrew, leaving her card and promising to return the next day, the stepmother finally decided to reveal part of the truth that she had hidden for months. "That child, she may be the daughter of a former employee of ours," she admitted reluctantly. "A woman who was fired for irregularities in the files, but that doesn't change anything. You can't get emotionally involved with this situation." "Irregularities? What kind of irregularities?" The millionaire felt his family income and net worth grow automatically through his investments, but he had never paid attention to the operational details of the company. Falsified documents, possible theft of confidential information. "I had to act quickly to protect our businesses." Her voice carried a firmness that did not allow for questioning. But something in the explanation sounded false, manipulated. During the next few days, while the girl slowly recovered from the pneumonia she had developed, the millionaire began a discreet investigation into the recent layoffs at his company. What he discovered left him horrified. Dozens of employees had been summarily dismissed in the last 2 years, always for vague irregularities that were never explained in detail. Entire families were financially destroyed, and many of these people simply disappeared from the city after losing their jobs. The gallery owner returned as promised, this time bringing photographs of her missing sister. When she showed the images to the millionaire, he immediately recognized the face. It was indeed a former employee who had worked in his office for almost 3 years before being abruptly fired. "She never told me about problems at work," explained the gallery owner, her eyes watering. "She just said she needed to leave town urgently with her daughter. She left some drawings with me and promised to keep in touch, but I never heard from her again." The revelation hit the millionaire like an avalanche. The girl's biological mother had worked directly for him, and her forced dismissal had resulted in the child's abandonment. The guilt he felt multiplied exponentially. That night, alone in his luxurious apartment, he reviewed all his assets and investments, his Bitcoin funds, his investments in euros and dollars, his treasure in gold, and realized that all that wealth seemed empty in the face of the suffering that his negligence had caused. The stepmother, realizing that he was discovering inconvenient truths, intensified her psychological attacks. She began to spread subtle rumors about the stepson's questionable intentions in relation to the child, using her network of contacts to plant seeds of suspicion that would grow quickly. Local authorities began to ask uncomfortable questions about the sudden concern of a single millionaire for a street girl. Journalists received anonymous tips about a possible scandal involving one of the richest families in the city. The girl's condition, which had initially improved, began to deteriorate again when the medications failed to completely combat the respiratory infection. The doctors expressed growing concern about complications that could become serious. During one of those nights of vigil at the hospital, while watching the child fight against the disease, the millionaire made a decision that would change his life forever. It didn't matter what the stepmother had done. It didn't matter the consequences for his reputation or business. He would officially assume responsibility for the girl. When he communicated his decision to the stepmother the following morning, her reaction was more violent than he had ever witnessed. Tears of fury ran down her face as she screamed about ingratitude, about how she had sacrificed her own life to take care of him after the loss of his parents. "You don't understand what you're doing," she yelled. "That child, there are things about her mother, that you can't imagine. If you continue with this madness, you will discover truths that will destroy everything we have built." But instead of intimidating him, the threats only confirmed his suspicions that there was much more behind the story than she had revealed. That afternoon, he hired a private investigator to find out exactly what had happened to the girl's mother and why her dismissal had been so abrupt and mysterious. What the investigator discovered in the first 24 hours of work exceeded all his darkest expectations, revealing a network of manipulation and blackmail that reached the very heart of his family. The private investigator presented his report on a grey morning that would change everything forever. Sitting in the millionaire's office, with documents scattered on the mahogany table, he revealed a plot of corruption and blackmail that stretched back years. "The girl's mother was not fired for irregularities," he began, his grave voice charged with indignation. "She discovered that your stepmother was embezzling money from the company through ghost contracts and non-existent suppliers. When she threatened to report the scheme, she was forced to disappear." The millionaire felt the world collapse around him. For years, while he focused on his investments and financial applications, blindly trusting in the management of the stepmother, she had built a parallel empire of corruption using the family name. "Where is she now?" The question came out as a desperate whisper. "Hidden in a small town 200 miles from here. She lives under a false name, working as a maid, terrified that something will happen to her daughter if she tries to return or report what she knows." The pieces of the puzzle finally fit together in a devastating way. The stepmother had orchestrated all the suffering of that family as a way to keep her corruption scheme secret. The forced separation between mother and daughter, the abandonment of the child, everything had been calculatedly cruel. That same day, the millionaire confronted the stepmother in her office. She tried to deny it initially, but when he presented the evidence collected by the investigator, her defenses crumbled completely. "Everything I did was to protect our assets," she shouted, the mask of control finally falling. "That woman could have destroyed our company, our funds, our investments in gold and cryptocurrency. I sacrificed everything for this family. You destroyed an innocent family to hide your own crimes," he replied, his voice trembling with contained fury. "A child spent months suffering in the streets because of your greed." The most shocking revelation came when the stepmother, realizing that she was lost, decided to use her last card. "You want to know the whole truth? Your parents didn't die in an accident. They discovered my questionable methods in business and threatened to expose me. What happened that night?" She stopped abruptly, realizing that she had gone too far. But the implication was clear, and the millionaire felt as if his own reality had been shattered. Everything in his life had been built on lies and manipulation. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the girl's condition had stabilized, but the doctors warned that she would need special care for months. The gallery owner had become a constant presence, helping with the care and revealing more and more details about her missing sister. "She always said that if anything happened, I should take care of the girl," said the gallery owner during one of those vigils. "But when she disappeared, I didn't know where to look. I thought they were both lost forever." The millionaire then made the bravest decision of his life. Using his wealth and influence constructively for the first time, he hired a team of security guards to protect the girl's mother and bring her back to the city. Simultaneously, he delivered all the evidence of the stepmother's crimes to the competent authorities. The reunion between mother and daughter took place a week later, in the hospital room. The woman entered hesitantly, her eyes searching desperately for the child she had been forced to abandon. When she saw the girl drawing birds on a piece of paper, tears ran freely down her face. "My little artist," she whispered, running to embrace the daughter who had grown so much during the months of separation. The girl, initially confused, soon recognized the familiar smell, the affectionate touch that had remained in her memory during all those months of loneliness. The reunion was a moment of healing that deeply touched everyone present. The millionaire watched the scene from afar, knowing that his role in that story was coming to an end in the most appropriate way possible. During the child's months of suffering, he had discovered that true love requires courage to be vulnerable, to break the walls that we build around the heart. The stepmother was subsequently tried and convicted for corruption, money laundering, and blackmail. During the process, additional revelations about her criminal activities came to light, including evidence that she had in fact manipulated the circumstances of the loss of the millionaire's parents, although it could not be legally proven. With the company finally cleansed of corruption, the millionaire completely restructured his businesses. He created a special fund to help families who had been harmed by the stepmother's previous practices, using a significant portion of his profits and dividends to repair the damages caused. The gallery owner organized a special exhibition of the girl's drawings, with all proceeds donated to an art therapy project for children in vulnerable situations. The birds drawn by the child became a symbol of freedom and hope for many other families. 6 months later, the millionaire visited the small house where mother and daughter had built their new life. The girl, now healthy and radiant, ran to hug him as she would a beloved uncle. Her drawings had evolved tremendously, and she spoke excitedly about the art classes she attended. "Thank you for giving us back to each other," said the mother, her eyes shining with genuine gratitude. "Thank you for teaching me that true wealth is not measured in capital or financial assets," he replied, watching the girl proudly show off her newest drawing. A family of birds flying freely under a sunny sky. At that moment, contemplating the simple and genuine happiness of that reunited family, the millionaire understood that his journey of emotional healing had only just begun. He had discovered that genuine human connection is worth more than all the bitcoins, euros, and gold in the world, and that sometimes we need to lose everything we think is important to find what really matters. The girl took his hand and smiled, her big eyes now shining with joy instead of fear. In that smile, he saw reflected the possibility of a future where kindness could overcome greed, where love could conquer manipulation, and where even the most wounded hearts could find healing through the courage to truly connect with other human beings. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment on what you thought of my story, giving it a score from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.